All right, this question is a little bit more in depth than most of the ones that we have for these charts and graphs. So we need to describe data from the graph that weakens the student's conclusions. That's important. Make sure you notice that word. Now, I would still approach it the same way that I would for any of these graph questions, is let's just see if all this stuff is accurate first. I don't think that takes very long, and it might help us without having to deal with the passage at all. So choice A, the spider population count was the same in both enclosures on day 1. That's true, right? Both of those bars are the same height, so that's true. Not necessarily right, just means that it's accurate. The spider population count also substantially declined by day 30 in the enclosure without lizards. So no lizards, it did decline from here to here, so that seems accurate. The largest decline in spider population count in the enclosure with lizards occurred from day 1 to day 10. So with lizards, that's from here to here. That's also accurate, so not looking good. The spider population count on day 30 was lower in the enclosure with lizards than in the enclosure without, so that's also true. So all 4 of these choices are accurate, so we do need to understand the passage. I don't think this was a huge waste of time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, whatever. All right, so let's see. What is the student's conclusion? Let's find that. To investigate the effect of lizard predation on spider populations, a student in a biology class placed spiders in 2 enclosures, one with lizards and one without, and tracked the number of spiders in the enclosures for 30 days. That has not said anything about a conclusion, right? That is a methodology that is telling us the setup of the experiment. We have not gotten any conclusion yet. The student concluded, well, what do you know? That the reduction in the spider population count in the enclosure with lizards by day 30 was entirely attributable to the presence of the lizards. Okay. So what would weaken this? This is where I like to maybe do a little dumb guess of what it is, right? So they're saying it's entirely attributable. Well, we would want something saying no, there's another cause, right? So, I mean, as stupid as it is, you could say not entirely about lizards, right? This is just us reversing the kid's conclusion. Now, we need data from the chart that's going to say that, but it's going to in some way orbit around this idea of it not only being about the lizards, right? So something else. So it probably means that we're going to be focused on this part of the chart, the grayish boxes that tell us where there's no lizards. So let's see, choice A. The spider population count was the same in both enclosures on day 1. So that can't be right for the answer, even though it's accurate, just because it's not talking about any sort of change, right? The student is making a conclusion about the reduction in the spider population. So if it's the same at the start, that has nothing to do with what the reduction is. B, the spider population count also substantially declined by day 30 in the enclosure without lizards. So that's maybe right because we said it's not about the lizards, and yet the spiders still went down. So this is kind of orbiting around the idea that we expected. C, the largest decline in spider population count in the enclosure with lizards occurred from day 1 to day 10. Well, that's talking about lizards. The point is we want something that's going to say that something about not having lizards. So this does not relate to the student's conclusion. D, the spider population count on day 30 was lower in the enclosure with lizards than in the enclosure without lizards. This is the trap. This is what you pick if you didn't read the question, because this supports the student's conclusion, right? This says the lizards are killing the spiders, and that's why there are fewer spiders in the enclosure with the lizards than in without, okay? So it's basically you just misread the question because you're trying to repeat the student's conclusion, support the conclusion, instead of the actual task, which is to weaken it. And the way that we weaken is by saying that something else must have been killing the spiders. We don't know what, we don't get that specific, but basically if there's no lizards, then according to the student, the spiders should all live. But they didn't, so something else is killing some spiders. So that's what choice B is suggesting, is that there's a decline in the population even when there are no lizards. If that's complicated to you, my advice is just keep it as simple as I did from the start, right? We need to weaken the conclusion. The conclusion is obviously stated right here. I just reversed it by adding the word not in front of it, right? And then I found a choice that kind of has to do with that. If it's not about the lizards, choice B is a choice that's not about lizards. So pick it. You can do that kind of stuff. It really does work, even though these passages may seem complicated.